Hey internet, so I've been preparing for Camp NaNoWriMo that I'm doing in April because what else would I be doing apart from Camp NaNoWriMo, like seriously. But I was telling Lizzie or Lady Elizabeth here on the internet about my book note things that I've been collecting and like making an encyclopedia for my world. So I thought I would make a video about it and tell you guys how I have everything sorting out for my world, for my stories and stuff. So first I'll go through the physical things, because there's a lot of physical things, and show you guys how I have been keeping it and how I will be keeping it. The first one that will continue is this lovely zip-up binder that I got from when I worked at Billabong. In here, so far I have like random pages here that will be getting written into my encyclopedia of knowledge. Random files there. And then in here I have everything I've written that's been ripped out of a book. I have a couple of books sitting there that I have written in. This is the loose pages. And it's really interesting to go through and read how terrible I am. Next thing I do is I have a heap of notebooks about this size. I usually have one on me and they get notes written in them about what I'm doing on particular stories and stuff, so that's always handy just because they're this size. I'm gonna try and not use these as much for story stuff. I tend to use them for YouTube now, but we'll see because I have so many of them. This isn't all of them. I love these little books. They're all from Typo. Next two are my 5-course notebooks that are the same size. These just have world development and little notes that I put down that I want to keep, so they're really great. Like this one has a lot of notes for 2 stories, a random section of randomness, and the end is stuff for my world, and they're pretty. Well, this isn't really pretty, but I like it. Right now I've been using this as my junk notebook just because I was stuck at work without a junk notebook. This has recently had all the pages ripped out of it that have anything on it and added to the file, but it's just an idea of how they end up when they've been in my bag for a while. I don't like these notebooks either because they can't rip them out as easy, and I don't know, I'm a snob when it comes to my writing books. One thing that we'll be carrying on is each story has 5-course notebooks, or sometimes just a single notebook. Like this is a vague story idea I have, and it has in there basic, actually this is getting pretty thought out, so this might have to move into a 5-course eventually, but there's skets, like my family ideas, my plot ideas, and these are good copy notebooks and pretty trashed, especially the singular ones. But if I have like costume ideas or random ideas, often I'll have a page or two of writing because I'll be sitting there and then I'll just grab the book that it belongs to, because occasion handwriting things is easier than not. The other ones are all 5-course notebooks. This is the latest one for my main story, and this is the older one for it. This kind of got messed around and shit added into it that shouldn't have been, so I'm keeping this one solely for that story. Again, I've gone through in this one so far and put down, like, start character names and family charts and birth dates and anything that could be important, random facts about the characters, and mating, because it's a fantasy world and mating's involved, okay? Whereas the next one's random ideas and plotting, and the other ones will be descriptions of scenes and a few scene sketches and layouts. I have that in another book at the moment because I was roughing it, but they'll eventually move into this baby with, I don't know, other information when I get to it. It's kind of similar with this one. This one has been more of my main working book for a newer story. Like I went through named stuff, crossed out some. This part's got all appearance building and character building in it. Like that is the start of a costume, and I know there's more in here. So you got that premise part, and then you have parts for the story and quotes and dialogue that can happen. I like to have, as I said, I like to sometimes write them out by hand because it's what I did a lot of the time in high school when computers weren't necessarily as accessible because I was in class. Yeah, I usually do most of my writing on the computer. I also have these notebooks for books to move into, because it's gonna happen. I have multiple stories sitting there on my hard drive that I'm like, I must get to, I must write more. Some that I've forgotten I was writing, or like I've gotten a paragraph or a page down. Now these are the new amazing notebooks that I'm loving. I brought out new hardcover notebooks, and a lot of these are science and space themed, so of course I picked them up. They're all 5-course notebooks. This is the smallest one and has a pen. And this I'm using again as my world building. These are more for the entire world, like an encyclopedic knowledge of all my stories, my world. This one is working out like random things about the characters or about their types. I'm gonna say species, it's not species, how the world works. So this is really my guessing starting notebook that will be carried around, maybe. It's so pretty. The next one is the I Study Constellations. Before it was cool, I didn't, but I would like to think I did. Also, constellations have always been cool. Again, another pen thingy. I love these pens from Typo 2. So each book has its own pen, except the next one because it's missing. Someone wrote with it and apparently didn't put it back. Wonder who that would have been. This one I'm using as more of my plotting for all my stories. So I've got main plot stuff here, the list of stories, and then random lines, and this is just going through all the pieces of paper that I had in there. I'm going through and taking bits, like if it's a bit of a story or a premise or something for a story to go in, I'm putting it all in here so I have like an encyclopedia of ideas and story stuff when I go back, because it might not be good for that story, but it could be good for another story, or I might need it for that story. The next one, which I'm pretty proud of, first I have a shitty plot that I tried to do and it failed. Then I have the completed plot that I did for a story that I'm not going to be writing anytime soon, but I have the completed plot for it, which really helped me out just seeing it visually and writing it down. I always like to date them because I went through a stage where, I don't know, I didn't date things and then I went back to see when I wrote it, and now I date everything. Yay! That will have more going into it around the stories. I'm just not sure what yet in the world. It's mainly world driven, but that one's more focused on the individual stories and information about those. This is pure world and science. So this is the human anatomy book, because why wouldn't I choose a human anatomy book? Just, I love science. As proven by the fact, this front page is a scientific classification of all my things, because I have my own fantasy world and like vampires, werewolves, witches, all that bullshit, but I wasn't sticking to the course of what they traditionally are, and I wasn't finding versions of them that I liked, so I started writing my own, and they have their own attributes, and now they have their own Latin names. But I worked this out. I was like, how can I do a scientific classification to work out, are they just a deviation of humans, or are they part of humanity, or what's happening here? I worked it out. So they're all under the species Homo sapien, but there are subspecies. Humans are Homo sapien, sapien, and everyone else has different things, and then that helps as well because there are a few groups, like especially in the magic and changeling ones, where they need to have, you've got your main one and then they've got different subcategories or different breeds of it. They get to have their own subclasses or breeds. The way I like to think about it or explain it, so you've got all your classifications, and then you've got like, I forget what canines are called in it, but you've got like your canines, so your wolves, your dogs, things like that. Then they separate again into their species, so wolf species, fox species, dog. And in the dog, and probably in wolves and all that, you have the breeds. So the breeds are like magic, but these different versions of magic. Or changelings / werewolves, but these different types. Hi internet, I'm sorry, I fucked that up. This is a different time and different setting, but who cares? So as for the dog side of things, you've got your kingdom, phylum, class, order, and family, which all pretty much break it down to different things, and you're in the canine realm. And then you've got your genus, which is more your classic dogs with that classic body structure and organs. It's like wolves, dogs, that sort of thing. Then you have your Canis lupus, which is a species, which is dogs. Pretty much just any variety of dog. Then you have your subspecies, your Canis lupus familiaris, which is your domestic dogs, and then they have their breeds underneath that. That makes sense. So in the human sense, you've got like kingdom, animalia, phylum, chordata, same as dogs. Class, mammalia, same as dogs. We differ at order because we go into primatus, which primates, monkeys and shit. We go into the suborder Hemplorhini, which I forget what that means. I could look it up right now, but I'm not going to. Then you have the family Homo inidae. Yeah. Then you've got your genus, Homo, and then you've got your species, so we're Homo sapiens, and you've got all the other ones, like cavemen, those fun things. I'm not looking at the names, so I'm not remembering them. And then you have your subspecies, which I've created, which are like Homo sapiens, sapiens for humans, or Homo sapien vampires, Homo sapien werewolves, whatever. I can't remember the names right now. It's 4 in the morning. And then underneath them, for like witches, they have their different types of breeds or different types of witches. So they're all like really the same thing, but they look different or they have different breeds, and because of this they have different characteristics. Continue with the video. I said encyclopedia a lot in this too. That sort of thing, you know. And then we've got, all of them have Latin names apart from one that got a Dutch name. Next I've got like my identifying characteristics of each Latin name. All of them do have like their just normal names, like, oh, the Denatatus or the Marked. Because not every one of these are eternal or like to speak Latin, so there's that. Just going through and like doing the defining features and marks, and that turns out to be fun because some are more thought out than others. But it's good, and then that way I can have still, because they all share the same skeletal structure as Homo sapiens, they're just magical and shit. But yeah, this will be going more into the way the world is based. I'm torn on it because I want to have different languages in there, but I don't know if I can. But it's my world, so I can do whatever the fuck I want. Eventually, I have already started in the little notebook going through how the hierarchy of the world is. Like, I don't know the politics of the normal human world in this one, but I know the politics when it comes to the freaks, as I like to call them, which are all my subclasses of humans and of Homo sapiens. And I know the underbelly of the human world, so we'll get to that one day. But yeah, that's kind of how I've got it all sorted in book form. Then I have like Scrivener set up, that it's got like plot and draft, previous versions, and a Wikipedia section that has everything, and then character stuff. This will also have, in the world there's like mating and things like that that happen universally. That will also go into this book. This is kind of like the encyclopedia of my stories. The encyclopedia of rough drafts, and Cassie frantically trying to work it out before she writes it all nice and neat in these ones. But yeah, so that's how I have my books set up for writing and stuff. Granted, most of it does take place on the computer, but I find I like to write them down physically, just in case I ever lose my computer crashes or something and I lose precious information. Although if my computer, there'd have to be a lot of things that crash for me to lose everything. A lot of things. Yeah, I hope you guys are having a lovely week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!